All good. Yeah, so shall we go ahead? So today we're just going to be talking about like really just four basic things. Basic resume structure, how do you tailor resumes for the job you're applying for, what are digital portfolios and why you need them, and also networking. So I think four stuff that should be able to cover the basics for t- uh, getting a job or just even making yourself look like you're ready for it. So for a basic resume structure, all you need really is it's a one pager resume for your highlights. And I've done the mistake where I made, like pages and pages and pages of resume. Please don't do that. So one pagers is what a lot of people are looking for, and it should have like really just the main points of everything that your future employer is going to be looking for. Also, I apologize in advance. I did not know there was going to be construction. If it's too noisy, I will see what I can do about that. But yeah, so for your resume, you want to do it in reverse chronological order always. So your most recent stuff should always go on the top. So if you're a student, you would put education on the top and then your internships at the bottom. And if you're already starting to work and maybe 2 years into it, then you can flip it around and you can use your job first and then your education. And then after that, you would go through your extracurriculars, which is like conferences, organizational positions, international experience. If you've gone on exchange or if you've participated in like a 2-week program somewhere, it can go there. And then afterwards, awards, scholarships, journalism awards that you've won, and also skills and interests. So skills and interest is like a debatable part. I think not everyone, or interest at least, not everyone thinks that interest is a thing. So I guess it really depends on your style. And then I'm going to be like super cheeky and walk you through my own resume just as an example, also because I don't feel comfortable walking through another person's resume. So let me just pull it up real quick. Chrome tab. Do, 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 do. There. So my resume is really hopefully quite straightforward. So I've got my name at the top, I've got my email, got my phone number, I've got my website, I got my LinkedIn, I got a quick bio on the top, and then I started with professional experience, and then so these are my internships and jobs and my education, and then these would be my orgs, awards, and skills and interests. So I think one thing I want to highlight is that I really tried my best to keep it as a one pager. I played around with the margins a little bit just to fit everything in. But if you're just starting off, feel free to use the default margins. Keep it, quite wide, and that'll be completely fine. People will totally understand. And I also want to show you the resume template that I made for you guys. So if you just want to use it, feel free to like copy it. So the link is also in the chat if you need it. But okay, sharing. Yeah, so this is a Google Doc that I created. So as you can see, it's literally the exact same font and everything as mine. But if you guys are like an Arial person or a Times New Roman person, by all means, use you. So bio, it should look something like this. My margins are quite thin, so just feel free to alter the margins a little bit. And one of the hacks that I learned for making everything super tidy is to make it in tables. So this way you can really just, instead of like tabbing all your way to your dates, you can just align right all your dates and then write it here. And then you can do the description there. And if your description is long, you can alter the width. You can play it around like that. And then when you're done with everything, just go to format, table, table properties, and then you can basically erase the border and it's going to look hella profesh. So that's definitely a hack that I've learned for resumes, and anything really that involves a lot of aligning, tables are your best friend. And yeah, so these are the interest part that I'm not sure that people would really look for. I think it's a good conversation starter if you can, for some reason find a common thread between you and your hiring manager. Say your hiring manager is like super into wine, and then you have like a wine certificate, or you're like super good at tasting wine. That might be a conversation starter for interviews. So I think only put it there, especially if it's super unique. I've heard people saying like, oh, if your interest is traveling, everyone says that, so don't do it. And then for certifications, skills, languages, this can be language and linguistic language, and also computer languages, which I realize is also quite important. But yes, please tailor this to your employer. If best, you can always ask for tips on resumes from people who have applied to that company before, or from past employees, and then see what kind of sticks. People are often really kind and will definitely point you in the right direction for these kind of things. So don't feel free to ask them. Okay, let's switch back to these slides. But until now, do you guys have any questions? If you do, just feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm keeping the chat tab open, so I can read through them. And the next step is tailoring resumes. So you always want to tailor your resume to every single job application you do. You do not want to send the exact same CV to like 1,000 different companies, because you really might not be in what they're looking for. So you can do a research on the position. You can do research on your company, your hiring manager. And then the important thing, which I discovered, is you need to use keywords listed in the job description in your resume, and probably in your cover letter as well. So I just pulled I did a quick Google for like a journalism internship position, and I found this. And I know it says New York, but we'll make it work. So for this one, it's a podcasting internship. And so you see the job description, basic stuff, and then, it's a 10-week internship program. So things that you want to, keep note of. I think somewhere it also says like they're based in New York. And then you see this part where they're encouraged to pitch their own stories and projects. So if you have something in your CV that says, oh, you pitched a project to this organization and then you followed through, or like, oh, you have these story ideas in your cover letter, presumably you say like you have these story ideas that you think can really fit the Wall Street Journal podcast universe, then that's already like a bonus tick mark in their book. And then, oh, there you go, New York City. So of course, if you're in New York City and you're not based there, let them know how you can work there. Say if you're a citizen or you have like a special visa. I put like my visa status on my CV on the top, just so that my employer knows what I'm looking for, or what they're signing up for. Because the worst part would be like you fulfill all the qualifications, and then towards the end you realize that, oh, your visa requirement doesn't even allow you to switch companies, or doesn't even allow you to work there. So I know visas are a little bit private, but generally in the beginning, like your first HR call, they're going to ask about your visa status anyway. So you might as well just give it to them. And then, so going forward towards like the details of the job. So production, publishing and promotion. So you want to make sure that you also know how to promote your stories and publish, and then you can show that in your CV. So for example, you can say like, oh, my Twitter engagement for my stories usually has like X amount of retweets, X amount of reach. I think you can get that from Twitter analytics and stuff. And you can even ask maybe wherever you posted your stories before, maybe on Medium, or if it's on a specific student publication, you can go to Google Analytics and see the page hits, because hits and clicks, especially for digital media, matter so much for editors nowadays. And even though they love traditional media, but a lot of the management always ask for KPI depending on hits and clicks. So this is also something really important that you should highlight in your CV if you can. And then, so they're looking for, this is a little bit about the publication. They're looking for domestic and international news, and then business and financial news. So if you can select clips from your portfolio that are relevant to this or that touch on domestic news or international news or business news, then it's already another plus point because they're trying to find someone that fits the bill of the company. So you want to show that you fit that bill as much as possible. And then if you look at the following skills, and then you see Pro Tools or Adobe Audition, you should, if you can use Adobe Audition, use it in, list it out in your CV. Or, you know, just do a quick tutorial, or you can say interest in learning Adobe Audition, but basically showing that you have interest in fitting what they're looking for. So same goes for organization skills, basic understanding in podcast format, comfort in researching, finding, and securing archival info, audio. So you can see how much time it'll take for you to invest in each job application, but it's gonna be worth it, guys. And then these are also values that you can definitely put in that bio, that top 2-3 lines that are on the top. So it's a self-starter, initiative, fast-moving. So if you can use these 3 words in the bio, they will love you. I don't know if this is literally something they're looking for explicitly, but more often than not, because these news orgs, they hear these self-starting, fast-moving, like these kind of values a lot every day. So even if you just put it there, I think subconsciously they already think you fit the bill, even though they might not know you just yet. Then so these kind of little things, they will help you a lot. I've heard of people who, for other jobs like banking and stuff, they would actually literally put Harvard, Yale, and all the Ivy League names in white font on their CV. And the reason for that is because some companies actually use CV screeners to pick out those keywords. So maybe if you're not convincing your hiring manager that these keywords fit the bill, you might be convincing the algorithm or the computer machine that's screening out your CV that you fit the bill. Also, if you do a little bit, if you scroll down for the job posting a little bit, you can see that they do have an internship medium or an internship blog. So this is always a good place for you to reach out. You can even reach out to like people there and ask what their experience is like, ask them for help. My experience in the journalism industry is that people are generally quite nice and they'll be very open to helping you out. And then we can move on to portfolios. But before that, do you guys have any questions? I feel like I'm breezing through the PowerPoint quite fast, and I'm trying to make sure that it's useful for all of you guys. No? Okay, we'll move on. So digital portfolios is something that, especially now, if, you want to ask, how do you indicate job promotion in the same organization in the resume? Yes, so that you can do it, you know how LinkedIn always has like a position, a company name, and then like several positions? So because I personally have not been promoted in the company and I've moved, so I didn't do that. But feel free to let me switch to my original tab. Give me a second. So feel free to like, let me see if it loads. There you go. So you can make this, for example, as a company. So this is like company X, and then you can say, this is your position, and then these are your responsibilities. And then you can indicate the timing of that here. So it's always possible to do that. I think people who generally stay in a company or for a few years or have gone through several positions in a span of a short time, that's what they do. And because it's a very distinct company name, I don't think people, like, it's okay to play around with this for a little bit. So that's how people generally do it, because with each position you have different responsibilities as well. So that's where you can highlight it. Oh, and also these bullet points, keep them as succinct as possible. If possible, fit them all in one line. If you have numbers on how many hits or clicks your articles got, or how many articles you produce, like what's your frequency, how many exclusives or scoops you do, or if you had a really big story that, you know, was like, that became super popular, put them here, and then your employer will immediately catch your future employer's eyes as well. Hopefully I answered your question. And then gonna go back to the slides. So digital portfolios, because everyone is going digital these days, and all your applications are usually online. It's quite important that you have an online repository of your work. Preferably one that's very accessible, but honestly, a lot of free options out there. I know, like Google Sites, or I don't know if Google Sites died, but you can just easily create a Medium account, for example, and you can put your clips there. Or I know there's stuff like Muckrack, or maybe even creating like a simple gallery. You can even make your Instagram your portfolio, just create like a whole new account. And then if you're a photographer or videographer, just upload everything there. It works in different ways. And then the great thing about that is you can link it on your resume, or you can link it on your name card. So my resume personally has like a QR code on the top right. And if people scan it, it'll take them straight to my website. And my resume is like right there at the very top as well. So they can also immediately look at a digital copy of my resume. You can put it on your LinkedIn, or you can use LinkedIn as well as your portfolio. It's not a very common option, but at least in the business journalism space, people really do advertise themselves on LinkedIn like hardcore. And if you want to take it a step further, you can build a website. Websites are really fun. I personally use Squarespace. I know that's like, if you listen to any digital content, you would probably see what the discount codes, or see a lot of people promoting Squarespace. So I literally just jump on that bandwagon. I use a promo code, and I made a website on Squarespace. But I know friends who made their websites on Wix, and you don't even have to pay for it, honestly. I think people would just really appreciate that that you built something up. So just to quickly share, this is my website. I'm not sure if you can see it yet. Oh, there you go. This is my website. It's not the best looking thing, but I just try to fit everything that I can do there. And then this will be my recession coverage, and then I've also had my banking coverage. But of course, it always works differently for different people depending on what kind of medium you operate in. So there's another journalist, a really big journalist, Laurel Chor. She's an AAJA Hong Kong member. And so she became really famous, I think, for her protest photography in Hong Kong. And it's really great that she literally put this in her homepage so that you get to see the kind of picture she took. This photo in particular exploded on social media. So I think it's really smart of her to put this as the first photo on her website so that people immediately know, oh, she's the girl who took this photo. And then if you zoom in, she has links of everything. So from all her projects, her other work, her about, her contact. I know another journalist in Hong Kong who does the same thing. So she actually worked with Laurel for a little bit, but her website looks completely different from Laurel's. This is her bio, And then, look at her like dropping all these like Emmy nominated Vice News segment. So things like this, if you can really highlight your achievements and select your clips accordingly. I know it's a lot of work. I definitely am guilty of not updating my website frequent enough. Oh, whoa, this girl really updates it really frequently. This just got published a few days ago. But yeah, so if you can do something like her, I think just so that people can also learn more about what you do, that will make it really valuable, and people can really just literally bury themselves in your work because you're amazing. And then when you're choosing clips to include in your portfolio, I think, of course, your digital portfolio is unlimited, so you can choose as many as you want, but try to include a wide of an array as possible. So if you have 5 stories about your local street vendor, pick one angle that encompasses the whole thing the best, and then you put that on your portfolio. So anything that's big, that's in-depth, that can show people how skillful you are or how resourceful you are. So the one with a story with a lot of sources, for example, or even with like a few sources, but those sources were really hard to find. Those would be really great samples for your resume. And then when you're picking for clips to your news org, then you should go for stuff that's relevant. Or like, say you're doing a podcasting internship, you wouldn't really put a lot of written stuff in there. Maybe you can put one just to show that you're able to write, but also put more on really just what they're looking for. And yeah, pick clips that are popular on social media. So you can even just like cheekily insert like a link to it, and then, or maybe a Twitter link or an Instagram post, and they can see how many comments and how many likes. So you don't have to actually like boast, when you can have those links or those metrics speak from themselves. And if you're ever lost, you can always ask for recommendations from your peers, from your mentors, from your former editors in your previous publication that you've already left, and then ask them what they thought was your best story, and then you can kind of see their thought process, and then go from there. And last but not least, networking. Networking is super important. At least for me on my end, I think I did not get past the initial HR screening, just because I did not have enough years of experience under my belt to qualify for the position that I'm in right now. But because I kind of like dug it my way into this position, so I contacted my ex-colleague, who currently works in this organization, and then I contacted her, and then I asked her to find out who the hiring manager is, and then I met the hiring manager for coffee, and then the hiring manager liked me, which is my current boss. So he actually asked HR to pull out my resume and to move forward with my application. So and literally HR just screened it out because of the years of experience. So really, whatever you find in the resume, if you fit like 60 to 70% of those requirements, go for it. If you fit 40%, go for it. Obviously, the lower percentage you fit in, the less chances you'll get into the job. But it's totally fine. Just go for it. If you show that you don't have that skill, but you have the willingness to learn, and you present it somehow in your CV, then they would take you in anyways. So you can contact, I don't know if predecessors is the right word, but people who were in your position previously. So if you're going for a 2021 internship position, find the 2020 interns and then like reach out to them, ask them what their experience was, ask them what they look for, what they ended up doing in the job. Because sometimes what happens is the job description and the actual job does not match. So if you, because like the job description has to go through HR and compliance, and so they end up editing most of it, but really you really want to fit the bill of what you're actually going to be doing in your job. So if you learn that there ends up being a lot more breaking news chasing than data processing, then you should put breaking news and stuff in your resume. And then you can also contact current employees. I think the more closer to your level, the better. So if you're senior management, look for a senior management person who can guide you through it. If you're more junior, maybe look for an entry level employee or past interns. Those are always like really, really good starts. And they would be very happy to talk to you. You can also meet your hiring manager directly. You can message them on LinkedIn, message them on Twitter, ask for a quick coffee. Editors, most of the time, they always want to get to know the people that they're going to be working with, and they are very willing to invest their time in that. So it's very likely that they will say yes. But if you don't want to do that and you think it's too straightforward, you can always bump into your hiring manager. So when this whole pandemic thing is over, an AAJA networking party is always a really good place to bump into people, because you can always hear like, oh, X person is coming, X person from this company is going to join the drinks, and then you can also join the drinks, and then you can strike up a conversation there. So that's always a trick. But with this current situation, I would say asking for a coffee might be better. But if not, you can always bump into them. And if you can get yourself into conferences, say like, say you report on the tech industry, or you want to report on the tech industry. So you would go to a tech conference like Singapore FinTech Festival, Hong Kong FinTech Week, or whatever equivalent it is in your city. And you can always find reporters there. There's always a media lounge. So you can just go there, and if you recognize them by face, you can always just like go up to them and say hi. A lot of the times they'll be chilling, or they'll be like waiting for the next panel to happen if they're not filing their stories at that moment. So you can always just bump into them that way. And yeah, lastly, you can always network with AAJA members. We're always here to lend a hand and to help you in any way, to connect you with people. Like somebody will know somebody. So feel free to reach out to any of us. And yep, that's the end of my workshop. Is there anything I can help you guys with in terms of CVs? If you guys want to consult your CVs as well, are open sharing it with the group, we're happy to go through them. Or if you feel like it's too much and you want to reach out to me personally, just to let sort of ask for feedback, I'm happy to do that as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Becky. Maybe we can have some time for some Q&A. If anyone wants to speak or type your questions in the chat, feel free. Yeah, and you can unmute your mic, introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hello, I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
I was wondering how I could indicate my freelancing experience, because sometimes I only write one article for one organization or one magazine. So I'm not sure if I should put everything on the resume itself, or I put various organization and then freelancing. Yeah.
Right. I think what people do, you freelance regularly for a few publications?
I just started off, so I don't have like a lot.
And in that case, then you can literally say it as the employer name, as just like freelance, and then in the sub bullet points you can add, you wrote for this publication, this publication, this publication. That's what my freelance friends do. And then in your portfolio, they're just going to see the publication name and not the fact that you're freelance. So that should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Yihui. Okay, so we have a question from Amy. Amy asks, are there any platforms you would recommend in looking for journalism internships or jobs?
LinkedIn is very popular, actually. I don't know if it's just because that's how I've been getting my jobs, from LinkedIn. If you're in Hong Kong, actually everyone is in Asia at this point. Tellum is a really good platform here in Asia. They're amazingly fast, and they're really good at scouting all these job opportunities, and then they compile it weekly in a newsletter. So they have a newsletter for East Asia, which is going to be Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Greater China, and then they have one for Southeast Asia. So if you let me see what their contact is. Reach out to me actually, and I can contact you guys with Tellum, or just drop me an if you guys want a running list of. Let's see, how should we best do this, Chloe? If people want to be connected to Tellum, because Tellum is kind of affiliated with AAJA as well, so I think we can maybe in like a post survey ask if they want to sign up for Tellum, and we can just forward that list to them or something. What do you reckon would be the best way?
Or I can send the link now, actually.
Okay, there you go.
The thing about, so as Becky mentioned, like Tellum is really great. They send you like weekly newsletters, and to subscribe to the alerts, you just have to like indicate your like interest in what region, like what area of job that you're looking for. So I'm just gonna like put the link there. So that's how I kind of like signed up. And then when you fill in your details, someone from the HR will contact you and then ask you about like your profile, or they'll kind of like stalk you already. So they'll kind of know who you are anyway, especially if you put your LinkedIn, and they'll ask like they'll just like, want to clarify like you want to learn about like maybe Singapore, Southeast Asia, or like jobs in Australia as well. And they'll just clarify all that with you, and then you'll be signed up. It's pretty fast. So yeah, just go to the link that I've just sent, and you can like sign up there. Or we can send this link later on as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it sounds really great. They put everything from internships, freelance opportunities, everything there. So they do job postings, and then they also do people movement. So you also can get to know the industry a little bit better, who just moved where and when. And they're extremely fast. And I don't know how they like stalk everyone, but they actually really do get their information really, really fast. Like they always know when I'm moving before I move. So it's a bit crazy, but yeah. So and they tend to in their newsletters, they keep, I think, job postings around for like 2-3 weeks, unless the poster requests it to be like taken off. So even if you just sign up, you can get to see the most recent last few weeks posts as well. And yeah, and then generally they also do promotions for conferences like us. I think we've promoted our conference through them a few times as well. And so you'd also be in the loop for whatever's happening in the journalism community. And then I see Sabrina has sent in a question. She asked, do you have any tips for how to approach hiring managers at companies where their info is not public and you might not know anyone? If approaching coldly, do you just send a simple LinkedIn message? So this does happen a lot. So what happens when managers are not quite active is I try to find their team members. So that's at least that's how I approached my hiring manager, because I realized he wasn't particularly active on LinkedIn. So I just approach someone who I know is, or it doesn't have to be under him, but maybe just like a teammate or like works in business development. People inside companies, they talk a lot to each other, or at the very least, they would have the email of the other person thanks to their internal database. So you can approach someone who seems more active and more friendly on social media and then go through that route. Or literally just ask around your AAJA friends and then ask like, oh, do you know anyone from this company? And then more often than not, people will know. So just feel free to ask. It's unless you're leaving a position and you don't want anyone else to know that you're job hunting, letting people know that you are looking for a job usually helps you a lot in terms of getting connections, in terms of them recommending new jobs that fit you. But yeah, so if approaching coldly, a LinkedIn message works. They might not reply immediately, but I feel like they will get to it, as long as you don't bombard them in like all social media platforms, like you don't tweet Instagram message, LinkedIn message, email. I think if you just send one, I think an email and LinkedIn is usually the best combo in my experience, because Twitter stuff just like gets buried really quickly. But yeah, email and LinkedIn, and then they will definitely go through it.
Actually, Becky, I have a question regarding like CV stuff. So, something that I used to try to do to beef up my CV would is like when I write about my experience on my CV, sometimes I try to include like who my supervisor was. Like for example, when I was working for AAJA, I wrote that I reported to like Tom Benner, who's our VP for Singapore. Or when I was at Forecast, I guess I didn't really mention NG because NG, I didn't really report directly to NG, but as in that kind of idea, would you think that is helpful, or do you think that it's just taking up my word space? Because
so I think if you're
if
your hiring manager knows this editor, then it's a good thing, because then your hiring manager can literally ask that person like, oh, how is it working with them, and they would trust their friend's word more. So for this position, I didn't mention it explicitly, but because my boss actually knows Juan, and I think they worked together in a few stories before. So when I told him like, oh yeah, I work with Juan, I think my boss reached out to Juan. I don't know for sure. I know Juan reached out to him to tell him that I'm applying, but I don't know if he actually ended up asking like comments from Juan about how I worked. But if you think that your hiring manager doesn't know that boss, or unless you're the person you're reporting to and that name has like a reputation in the industry, so like they have a reputation for like fostering a really good team or being like notorious about deadlines. Unless they have like some sort of reputation, then maybe not so much. Like putting it in would just be like a random name on the resume. But I know people who put like references at the bottom as well, and then to say like, oh, you can contact these people to learn more about me. So that's also another way to put that name in. So it's not completely out of like taking up word count. It just depends on like if you think it will add value, then you should totally do it. I think the tricky thing with CV is there's really not one fixed way to get HR's attention. So you definitely can try a few tricks and experiment here and there.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Sure.
So does anyone else have any other questions? Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself or type your question in the chat.
I have a question if no one else is asking.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was wondering if, actually someone just asked it. I'm not sure if how important cover letter is for different organizations, because I heard from different people that about varying significance of cover letter when it comes to applying for internship. So I'm not sure about your own experience of that.
So cover letters, actually a lot of organizations have stripped cover letters from their requirements. I don't know if it's because like HR just doesn't want to read a lot of stuff, but so I personally only write a cover letter if it's required. And if it's required, then what I would include is usually I would try to write a story. So something that's a lot more personal, but shows that you have a lot of grit, resilience, and a lot of willingness to look for news, because those things don't show up in your CV. So they would have everything they need in the CV. So your cover letter should be something completely different from it. Again, use keywords in your cover letter. That helps a lot. I think subconsciously when employers are reading it, they know like, oh, this girl fits the bill. Or if you use terminology that particular beat, that terminology that's specific to that particular beat in your cover letter, then they would also be like, oh, this person knows what they're talking about. But in general, I've actually never went super far with cover letters. So I never gotten a job because of my really good cover letter. So I might not be the best person to ask on this front. But yeah, from what I know, that's you don't duplicate what you have in the CV. So don't just like make it a written form of your CV. Chloe, do you have anything to add like on a cover letter front?
I used to also, I guess something that a mistake that I used to make was that my cover letters used to be a bit long. So there was I kind of wrote a little too much. Like I kind of drew all my experiences. And there was a point, I think it was like early part of last year when I was applying for internships. And I got like rejected by quite a few. And so there was this particular company, I wrote back to ask like, oh, why did I get like, do you have any feedback as to why I was rejected? And then they actually wrote back and said like, oh yeah, definitely, like happy to hear from you and we'll give you some advice. Like, yeah, your cover letter was just a bit too long and it was a bit too dense. So that was like my story on how, yeah, so don't, I think the recommended word limit is like 500 to 600.
500. Yeah.
500, right? Yeah, not too long. I think just really specifying what they need to know. So I mean, in journalism, I guess like concision is also very key. So it's also kind of like practice for you on how to write a bit more concisely and like really knowing what the HR people want. Yeah, so I guess that's my advice. Yeah.
Oh, pitch some story ideas in your cover letter.
Oh yeah.
I've been given that advice a lot. Yeah. So if you think of like story ideas or if you know that there's this like hole in their coverage space, like they're covering say for example they're covering Southeast Asia, but they don't cover Malaysia, for example, and then you say like, oh, people in Malaysia who can give you like this story, and then also like picture stories in there. That would really help boost your profile in the application. So at least if they don't hire you for that position, if they want like a one-off story, they can still go to you for a freelance opportunity. So that's also a really good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, Xiang has a question.
Yeah.
He asked, do you think a fancy CV template works better or plainer one works better?
So from my experience, a plainer one works the best. Of course, a little splash of color here and there is completely fine. If you want to change up the font a little bit, it's also completely fine. But a fancy CV template generally works for people in the creative industry. So graphic designers, videographers, I think it works, or I don't know, fashion maybe, the fashion industry. So it works better on that side of the workspace. Not so much in journalism, unfortunately. Yeah, I think a lot of news orgs tend to be pretty traditional and conservative in terms of their CV. So if you can stick to the plain ones, you might as well just stick to the plain ones as well, because you can fit in a lot more info in there. Once you start adding graphics and fancy elements, it actually takes up a lot of your space. And once you start building experience or you want to show off more of what you do, like, man, you wouldn't even want to play with the margins just to squeeze everything in. So yeah, so I think stick to the very basic blocks of a CV would be a lot safer. And then Turtleverse asks, what kinds of things are useful to put in my portfolio if I plan to intern or get an entry-level job in journalism? So you should, this is my mistake, I did not have anything on my portfolio when I first applied, but you should definitely do a local reporting job. So if you report on something that's happening in your school, something in your school's administration, or some political comments from students or from your friends around your neighborhood. So local stories, like even though they're small, but just go up to your someone you admire, and then you can just ask them like, oh, can I profile you for either my portfolio, or you can always go like, or for my school publication, can I write a story about what you've been doing and things like that. So very, very simple stuff really helps to start reporting. So these kind of things, if you don't have anything else to write up on, you can always turn to these stories. Say like in the pandemic, you can ask like, oh, how's your local street vendor coping with the pandemic? How has the sales been? How has the customer traffic been? These kind of stories will always be a good starting point in your portfolio. So if you have nothing, start there. Eri Tamazawa asks, hi, I'm working as a broadcast journalist in Japan, and it's not really frequent or common for us to change jobs, and there's no culture of asking for a cover letter from our boss. However, in most cases, we need letters for the next steps. What will be the nicest way for that? Oh, is this a reference recommendation letter from your boss?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so this is always tricky because you can never ask your direct boss for a recommendation letter, because then they will know that you're looking elsewhere. So what you can do is you ask your previous boss, preferably who doesn't work in the same company, so that you can ask them for a letter and just be like, oh, I'm looking to apply for a new place and I just need a letter. So you ask them, or or you can ask, like, if you work for, or if you're active in an organization such as maybe like AAJA, I would be very comfortable asking any of my friends here for like a recommendation letter to sort of bolster my profile. Or you can also ask your former professors from university for a recommendation letter, or if they've worked with you before in maybe some student publications. But yes, so never ask your direct boss for a letter. Always ask somebody else, but as close as possible to them. Do you think that's possible, or is that a little bit out of the, or is that does not work for you in your situation?
I think the case is that we don't really change jobs and we stay in the same company forever until retirement. Mm-hmm. And my boss usually stays until retirement, and so they don't change jobs. So like, it's not really possible for asking them for my cover letter. Or the thing is, they use Japanese in most cases. They don't really speak English. So they cannot really make the letters and the different languages.
Oh, you can always write the letter for them. So this is a lot more often than not, they would actually not have the time to write the letter for you. So you can easily draft it for them and then tell them like, oh, if you want to change anything, feel free to change it, and then get them to sign it off. Yeah, a lot of recommendation letters are actually written by the people themselves and not by the people who are like, who sign off. Yeah. So a lot of times that's what you have to do, just because they literally don't have the time for it. Or like, even if they do, it's very low on their priority list because it's not, yeah. But that can always work. You can always ask to draft it for them. Or you give them like a few bullet points and be like, these are the stuff that I want to highlight. And then they would, it's easier for them to do that than to start from scratch, because they're like, what am I supposed to write about this person? But yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Good luck. It's really tough, I think, especially with the culture there. Yeah.
Or maybe I can ask for advice, and this community, like AAJA communities, and my seniors working for the same company and already retired. Maybe I can ask for that.
Yeah. As long as they're not in the same company anymore, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And we have a Japan subchapter, I think. So I'm not sure of the contact details. Yeah, I think Chloe can connect you with those people in the Japan subchapter.
Oh, definitely, I need.
Yeah. Yes. So you'll be able to get a lot of contacts there, and the people there generally would speak English. So I think you might be in a better position for that.
Okay.
Cool. Amy asks, if you don't have a lot of professional experience, or if you're new to journalism, what should you do to stand out with candidates who have more experience? So really, nothing speaks more than the reporting you're doing. So if you think your experience is what's putting you behind, then just do more stories. You should just like write more, go out, do more interviews. If you're active and say like you write for a student publications are generally a really good place to start because you have like a lot of control over your stories and everything. And people love student publications because it's very original. It's not tied to any business motive. So that's usually when your reporting quality can be at its best because you don't have to appease like business side because there is no business in student publications. So that's what you should do. Networking really helps as well. So like if you know your hiring manager and if you get to meet them for coffee and then they're really impressed by like your attitude or the stories you wrote, and they feel comfortable with you, they would prefer to hire you over someone who has a lot more experience, but they don't know anything about like personally. So that is one edge. I know that journalism is it's kind of a problem with the industry, but basically like all the big names always hire from like the best schools. So that's really, really tricky. But what I've learned from journalism is you can always start in a smaller publication and then you have a chance to do a lot more. And then you can very quickly transition into a big publication. Like that's very easy to do. So that's what I did. I started off with like a very small magazine. Like there were like 3 reporters. And then I worked like that for like a year and a half. And then I transitioned into S&P, which is arguably a much bigger name than my previous publications. But it's completely fine if you start off small, because unfortunately that's how the industry kind of works. They don't really take I think the big names don't really take people with no experience off the bat. But if you can make up for it with your own reporting in your own time, then I don't think that should be a problem for you. Like I definitely didn't do that. So that was my bad. And Sam Yi Hung asked, any recommended awards for student journalists to join? The Google News Initiative Award is a really good one. I think Chloe, you might be more familiar with that than me, but yeah, Google hosts and awards. What else? The SOPA have an award category for student journalists?
Yeah, I think they do. So for students, I'm not sure. I know AAJA has AAJA also has like yearly awards, but the thing is, yeah, they do. But
okay,
I feel like it's very like national based.
Okay.
Yeah, they have scholarships, but I feel like they might.
I'm talking about US AAJs, but not
not
but Asia.
You can nominate like your friends or yourself for like student journalism as well. Yeah, maybe it's something that we need to look into a little bit more on like student journalism awards.
I know one IFRA also has some sort of awards, and I think they have a student category. So I think most of the times for these awards is they have a student category, but they're not specifically like not everything is student. We will get back to you with that. I think that's definitely something we need to work on. Maybe we should work on like a repository of like awards to apply for and things like that. Connect with more universities and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But
okay.
Yeah, that's true. Because usually in our N3 con, Google does this whole award thing, and then throughout the whole, I think throughout like 2-3 like a month maybe leading up to the conference, we would accept submissions, and then we'd reveal the winner at the actual conference.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no more questions, yeah, just thanks again, Vicky, for having this very informative and helpful session on CVs and like career building. Hope everyone had a good time. But if not, that's all for today. Thank you very much for dropping in.
Thank you, guys. And good luck with your CV stuff. Feel free to reach out to any one of us.